Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Respecting the Beer. I'm producer Dave, and this week we've got Herbiery Brewing out of Madison, Wisconsin, back on the show. If you missed last week's episode, be sure to go listen to it to hear the full story of how they brew beer without a single hop. I know, crazy, right? Let's jump back into the conversation.
So in the brewing process, for certain flavors that we do for our barrel-aged things, we'll make a tincture where we throw the stuff in and we let it sit for forever. Do you apply that sort of procedure ever to really I'm wondering some of the delicate aromas and such of flowers and things. Do you have any sort of concentration skill, tactics that you use?
Yeah, it's challenging to get the flowers in at the right point in the process, but using a hop rocket is something we did recently in a collaboration. Cool. To get elderflowers into a recipe, as well as we did a number of different variants on a base beer and used the hop rocket for a lot of flower additions and other herbs that we wanted to be more aromatic.
So for those listening and don't know what a hop rocket is, basically it's this vessel that you put in a bunch of just stuff, and then the beer goes through it and it picks up the aromatics and the different, it's what would you say?
And you're doing that in real time for a dispense?
Would you continue to add to the hop rocket explanation for those that don't know who are listening?
Right. So like she says, it's a way to infuse the aromatics, the top to top note your product with whatever.
But it's the finished product that then goes through.
Well, I'm wondering though, are you guys talking about on dispense? Or are you talking about infusing a barrel batch of something? What are you thinking here?
Not on dispense, more into the barrel.
Got it.
But on dispense would be interesting too. I mean, you can put an infuser in a line, and then there's so many different ways that you could do this.
That's always adventurous because every pint sits there a different length of time.
Yeah, you'd have to figure something out there. If you wanted consistency or
have a buzzer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Nia, I've had this question in my head since we started talking. I've done some brewing and whatnot. When I've done batches that employ the leaf of the hop as an example, and I think you know where I'm going with this, it was very difficult to control the amount of vegetal matter that ends up in your beer, and you lose so much of the volume of the liquid because you're using so much, particularly when whole cone hops comes to mind. Do you find that is also a challenge when you're brewing with herbs, that you have to, because I'm not, we're going to get into this, but in terms of the volume of herbs that you're using, is it more or less than hops? Does it contribute, vegetal matter into the beer? Do you have to then filter that out? So can I just open that like a cornucopia of questions to you and have you share that with our listeners?
Generally, when we're brewing, because I'm brewing on contract, I'm brewing on somebody else's system. That dictates how I brew often. I would generally bring in a mesh bag and be putting herbs into that to then be incorporated into the boil so that I can be removed. And then you don't have to worry about clogging heat exchangers and things like that, or as much filtration down the line with herb matter. I've also worked with breweries that have centrifuges for the most part, and that provides great clarity for the final product to be able to spin that finished beer or that processed beer through a centrifuge to just remove all the fine particulate matter. So often I've ended up with clear beers in that regard and not had to worry so much about particulates. And most of the time I'm brewing into the boil just because I'm using other people's equipment and wanting to be sanitary, but generally using some sort of infuser to infuse anything post-boil. So like a hop rocket or a converted yeast brink or something like that. That's how we added coffee to a coffee kolsch that we did. We just ran the finished kolsch through converted yeast brink. It was basically a hop rocket. But
Bobby, I'm going to have you take this from here. There's a lot to unpack.
There's so much here. So you guys have heard of abstracts, right? They're like the leader in like terpenes. It's concentrated and dosed into beer. Maybe you have or haven't heard of them, but they're extracting these terpenes either from hops or from fruits. and then they're selling them to brewers, and brewers are able to amplify what they're trying to achieve in their products. I think they're generally dealing with non-hop products. So I didn't know what like the terpene industry, how that overlaps with what you're trying to do, or if you even pay attention to that, since you're going with the raw ingredients as it is. I don't know if you know anything about the terpene world these days.
Not in the industry terminology or as an industry, but I'm familiar with herbs that have terpenes in them, and a lot of them
Sure.
do. Terpenes, alkaloids, all those different constituents will come through, but it's not as measured. We're not creating those extracts in any way besides through infusing them in the brewing process.
Mm-hmm.
And
Lauren,
to my
do you
understanding,
know that at all?
Not the industry, but one of the herbs that I grow is cannabis sativa, industrial hemp to be specific. And that's the plant that I've grown that is the most highly regulated, the only plant that I grow that has been regulated. And I found it interesting in all the third-party testing to review the terpene profiles and sort of dig in like from a chemical perspective. But on the other side, I also don't know if that's necessary to like be able to interpret the flavor as well. Like you have like your own experience of that as well. Both are valuable to look at. Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I'm looking on my phone right now. In about 2 or 3 years ago, there was an article that came out in the Chemical and Engineering News, which is the American Chemical Society kind of just journal of like daily report or weekly report. And it talked about how hops were now to be used. The dentistry industry or the oral health industry had targeted hops as a potential new component for oral health. And I'm looking at a 2022 hop components on oral health. Hops may be positive effect on oral health, considering its role in the systemic health of oral care, antimicrobial, antioxidant activities. Anyway, I immediately go to Bobby and I was like, oh no, if the pharma gets the hops, what are we going to do?
or if Joel learns that hops are good for your teeth too.
Yeah, that would. So 547 is like brushing my teeth.
So for context, 547 is a lot of hops. Joel loves hops, and it's his beer.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but so I just started to think about how in the chemistry industry, natural products are such a huge push, especially for the pharmaceuticals and such. But, hops, I say we need them in beer, but it turns out, I guess we don't necessarily. And so I'm wondering, have other breweries come to you so far and said, oh my goodness, like, can we learn from you? Can we, as hops become more and more versatile elsewhere in the industry, would making beer without hops become a whole new market that we are going to try and tap into?
And before you answer that, is it
Intended.
legal to make beer without hops? Even though you guys are definitely doing that, is that by definition beer? I mean, I shouldn't say legal, but is it categorized as such?
So yes, it's categorized in the Internal Revenue Code as beer, and the Alcohol, Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau categorizes beer brewed with hops as a fermented malt beverage, whereas an IRC beer is brewed without hops or without malts, or like it's kind of like the seltzery space,
Right.
or what's colloquially known as fermented malt beverages. And then also
the taxes are the same, though, aren't they? The taxes are the same, I think.
Right. The excise taxes are the same.
Yeah.
The way that we're regulated is a little bit different. The FDA ends up regulating and I follow the FDA guidelines as far as like, I have a small business nutrition labeling exemption currently, but if I get big enough, I'll have to have nutrition labels on my beer. And for all intents and purposes, as far as like taxation goes, and a lot of other ways that are practical, it's the same. But I don't have to submit labels to the TTB. I just follow FDA guidelines, and yeah, I have to. My labels look a little bit different. I have to list the ingredients. The exemption doesn't apply to that, so I have to list like descending order ingredients and things like that, which I think is cool. But
So we've talked a little bit about the difference between what you're doing and a more traditional perspective. We've talked about the production. One of the things we also focused with respect to this podcast is the journey that brewers make, and you were kind of meandering down this path. The business side of things. Can you tell us a little bit about the origin story of how you ended up in a Winnebago Street in Madison, and what challenges that you have faced, and what victories you feel like you've secured, and things like that? Because we've done a lot of episodes on some of the stumbling blocks that we've had, but we've also celebrated a lot of wins too. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let's see. How much do I want to talk about? Like I said, tried to contract, still contracting, but tried to use that as a launch pad for broad distribution. And that never took hold in the way that I was hoping for so many reasons. But when that was struggling, I was looking at opening a tap room to pivot and have a space for people to come, have better margins, have a place for the brand to be experienced, and to give people a sense of what Herbiery is all about, highlight some of the brand values. And so that's when looking at opening the tap room, Winnebago Street became the project. And then we did that, opened the tap room in 2020. Let's see, it's summer of 2023. That's when we ended up.
Oh, you skipped COVID. That was smart.
Yeah, we were still distributing in that. So yeah, when COVID hit, we were still wholesaling, which was still really challenging for self-distributing brewery.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, we don't have a physical space, it's totally fine. It was like, I can't run around to all the retailers and check in as a single person. It's like distribution companies may be benefited, but as a single person self-distributing beer, it was just as devastating. And my parents were investing. 2020, my dad passed away. And so lost a business advisor and my dad, and just had trouble around that. So the whole business model kind of imploded at that point. Kept pushing, kept trying to do it. Talked to some folks in South Korea and China for a while. There's more of an herbal inclination in the cultural space in those areas. And I was thinking exporting some of this beer would be really interesting. Wisconsin actually has a prominent view from Asia with ginseng production. And Wisconsin specifically does exports to China. So it seemed like a market that could be welcoming to a Wisconsin-made product. It's still something I'm interested in, but kind of a shot in the dark at the time. And then the tap room was just like a additional pivot to do on-premise stuff and create that space, like I was saying. And that came with its own challenges. We still had the expenses of a distributing brewery. And though the tap room was doing very well from open into that first winter, I could not cover everything when distribution wasn't. And so winter 2024. So winter 2023, day after Thanksgiving, I was bartending, trying to keep the tap room going. I was bartending 4 or 5 days a week. And that's when Lauren came into the tap room. And that's how we met, was the day after Thanksgiving. Lauren was passing through Madison and saw a neon sign that said Herbiery Tap Room. And
it's like, definitely have to stop and check this out. And I came in and we chatted for a couple hours about herbs and locally grown grains and herbs and fermenting, and was so excited to meet someone excited about sourcing locally, about fermenting with herbs and doing it really well. And so we made a plan to work together. And I was going to start growing herbs for you that next year. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's when we met.
Yeah. I started going down to Illinois, visiting Lauren's farm. And, then I was getting an investment to do more brewing. That fell through. So a lot of the herbs that we were going to do together, we didn't end up doing that time. But now we are. And the intention's there to keep doing that. So we started dating that spring, and that's been a big boost to the commitment that I have to the business, because Lauren's business is so complementary to Herbiery, and working together has been so energizing and exciting to be able to think about vertical integration with agriculture and brewing. And I just love farming and being outside, and doing that with Lauren has been reinvigorating.
It's also
That's
been
fantastic.
keeping what I do invigorating as well. Because that year, was that just last year? Oh my God. Okay. So last year I lost access to the land I was farming in Illinois. So you got me through a really challenging period. I guess we were sort of starting to see each other when I was like moving off this farm, but still so inspired by, we were brewing beer at the same time, and I was learning how to brew beer with grain, which I'd never done before, which has been really, I'm learning so much from you, having only brewed like sugar beers. Like, yeah. So I don't know, just really grateful that we met when we did.
So Nia, key question. If I'm bringing a group down to the Madison area and we stop in over on Winnebago Street to the brewery, take a second and think about this. What are 3 or 4 of the beers that you'd like to highlight and talk a little bit about as beers that you would recommend to our listeners?
I would say some of the beers that we brewed recently, I would definitely recommend people come in and check out. We recently brewed a farmhouse ale with yarrow and creeping Charlie, and those are herbs that Lauren grew or foraged, and that beer turned out really amazing. We also sourced some rye berries from Meadowlark Organics. They're a grain farm and mill west of Madison, and that raw rye contributes a haze and a creaminess that's really nice for that beer as well. That beer is awesome. And then we have a Belgian beer with pawpaw fruits, which, if no one's familiar, pawpaw fruits are these amazing regional fruits that grow native in this region with tropical flavors, like mango, pineapple, banana, kind of all smushed together. And so that expresses itself incredibly well in a Belgian beer. Those are sourced from Northern Illinois through Lauren as well. And then that beer also has Tulsi, dandelion root, and lemongrass, also through Ecotown, which complement all those other flavors very well. And then there's some other beers that I've done for a while that I recommend people try. The Golden Coconut Milk Stout is really a great, so we were talking about dry Irish stouts earlier. It's based on that, but it's with turmeric chai spices. So it's like a golden milk kind of spice profile, and it uses coconut milk itself, which adds a nice silky texture without that heavy overtone of coconut flavor. The coffee kolsch, probably just the way that we achieved a light coffee element to a kolsch style beer that still has a kolsch flavor.
It's such a delicate beer. Oh my mind is blown. We're going to Madison. I'm just saying.
No, I'm there all the time. You guys are welcome to hitch a ride. I'm 100% going to stop in and see what's happening here. But
you've been making, I got to interject because I've been making notes as you were talking, and you dropped the Meadowlark. So Meadowlark, we make an all organic, made in Wisconsin rye IPA here. All Meadowlark rye berries. And it's a combination of, it's a collaboration we've done with Stefano Viglietti from what does he run?
Slow
The
Foods.
Trattoria, Il Retrovo, and Slow Foods, all in Sheboygan. And they're at 3 of his restaurants in the top 10 in the state. And he has such a connection with farm to table. And he insisted if we were going to make a beer with him, we made it with him with his name on it, that we had to use all organic ingredients. He wanted Meadowlark to be involved. So I was making this other note on this piece of paper here about how you guys need to connect with me / him at some point about doing some more herbal collaborations, because he loves this.
This actually, it's before you can answer any of those questions. Or I don't even know if those are questions.
No, it's just
how many are you? So is it just the 2 of you running this place?
With some help, but really just the 2 of us.
Yeah, just because there's only so much any 1 or 2 people can do in a day. Our team has expanded now. I think we've got. There were 14 or 15 people on payroll when I ran it last, and so I'm just commending how impressive it is of this.
Also, how jealous we are to have a company of 2.
Oh my God.
It cuts 2 ways.
But when Nia was kind of running down that list,
Yeah.
your facial expression, you had lit up a few times.
I did.
About like what was your reaction to hearing some of these styles of beers?
Well, I'm fascinated by how, like, I'm fascinated by the Reinheitsgebot because you can get beers that taste like chocolate that have no chocolate. And this is just, again, going back to that nth dimension. It just expands the flavors by finding ways to add flavor profiles that come from alternative sources. And it's I don't know, it's learning that there's not just milk chocolate, there's dark chocolate when you become older. You know, there's so many different other flavors out there.
Totally. And to think, if I might add too, like what flavors exist around us in like the spaces that we are in, like the flavors that are an expression of time and place, and then like how that changes over time. That's something that really fascinates me too. Mm-hmm. Totally.
I had two things circled here before we conclude. It feels like we're close. First of all, I wanted to thank Stephanie Harvey. I don't know if you guys met her, but she met you. And she was impressed by what you do. And that's why we're doing this podcast right now. She's a friend of mine who sells beer across the state. She said you'd be a good fit. The other thing was I have the word intentional written down. You guys may be the most intentional brewers I've ever met. That is, I think, and deliberate and of play.
Well, I just have to say the slogan on your website, folklore fermentation.
Love it.
Fermenting folklore. Wait, I already lost it. What does it say? No, fermented folklore. I love that so much. The history podcast alone.
To be referred to by Bobby as intentional is a radiant compliment, by the way. I don't know if you understand the degree of what a compliment that was.
Well, I mean, you guys sell it. I mean, that's your brand. It's clear that what you're doing is very deliberate and very intentional. You're doing it well. I like to try these beers.
So I think, well, let's wrap up with that thought right there, that at some point,
everyone go down and check them out.
Yes, everyone go to Winnebago Street, suite number 101, was it? Suite 101, the Herbiery Brewing Company in Madison, Wisconsin. Fascinating story.
Although check their website for hours. I'm seeing if your website's
Friday and Saturday. Friday and Saturday, you're good.
4 to 9 on Friday and 1 to 6 on Saturday.
So if you were looking to go down there on a Wednesday, don't. Instead, come to McFleshman's on a Wednesday and then plan to go on a Friday or a Saturday.
And I'll connect you to Stefano and Sheboygan. I feel like there's something there.
They should be able to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We'd also love to invite people by on the first Monday of every month. We're doing an industry night. So half-price beers for industry. That includes brewers, bartenders, and farmers. We're doing a free workshop during that time, just like under the umbrella of under the umbrella of herbalism. We'll leave it there.
Well, We've done 80 some podcasts, and I don't know if I've learned as much on any of them as I have.
I have so many fun questions.
I know.
Now. I'm going to go read a whole bunch.
We could speak 3 hours about all of this. So thank you again so much for joining us. This has been great. Any other last thoughts before we wrap it up?
I just want to taste y'all's beer. I'm so intrigued. I'm so excited.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So this will work out perfectly. I'm going to send you to Madison to pick up kids, and then you can go to the brewery.
Sounds good. Yeah, you just watch mine, and I'll pick up yours.
Yeah, done deal.
Cool.
Win. Awesome.
Looking forward to see you.
Terrific. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Respecting the Beer. The producer of Respecting the Beer is David Kelso. Without David, the show wouldn't happen. We have proved that we can make the show happen without Gary. Again, we are still looking for Gary. If you've seen Gary and you're listening, please call 1-800-GARY and let us know if you have found him. Be sure to subscribe and review the show in your favorite podcast player so you never miss an episode. Join our Facebook group, to stay up to date between episodes and support the show by joining the Patreon. For as little as $8 a month, you can get episodes a week early, get access to exclusive beers, and Bobby's cooking up some exciting stuff from what I've heard. Links to everything as in the show notes. And until next time, please remember to respect the herbal beer.